Today we fight. We fight for freedom. We fight for our home, our rights and peace. With all but one man, the tyrant, the betrayer. With swords by our sides, with horses we ride. We will prevail!
Financial slavery is a bitch because it doesn't let you think. That's the whole point. Don't give you time to think. If you want to really learn philosophy, you need leisure. Leisure. Crypto is here to give you the leisure so you can think.
I'm Lynn Ulbricht, and I'm the mother of Ross Ulbricht, who has received a double life sentence plus 40 years for all nonviolent crimes associated with launching and operating the Silk Road website.
The Silk Road.
The Silk Road.
The Silk Road.
The FBI calls it the most sophisticated criminal marketplace on the internet.
Tonight, its founder is behind bars.
Out of that stunning arrest of the drug kingpin who goes by the name Dread Pirate Roberts appears to have cornered the internet drug market. His real name is Ross Ulbricht, and his website, Silk Road, is packed with products like cocaine and heroin.
He's been sentenced to life in prison.
Ross Ulbricht was just sentenced to life in prison without parole and fined more than $183 million.
My name's Callie Ulbricht, and I am Ross Ulbricht's sister.
So he got a double life sentence plus 40 years, basically for a platform.
Getting through this horrible situation, he handles it a lot better than I do.
You know, they brought up that cyanide was on Silk Road. Well, cyanide was on Amazon, and in fact, a teenage girl bought it and killed herself with it, tragically, and her mother is suing Amazon. Jeff Bezos is not being hauled into court. And of course, Craigslist has many crimes on it. Craig Newmark is not being held responsible for that.
I tend to get really frustrated and angry at the unfairness of the situation, whereas Ross is like, well, I'm still alive, so there's still hope.
Pretty sure I want to start a family in the next 5 years.
Nice. Okay.
Just make more friends and close people I love. Yeah, I want to focus on being more connected to people.
Very good. And 20 years.
20 years. I want to have had a substantial positive impact on the future of humanity by that time.
Imagine being a believer in true freedom, the ability to buy and sell anything as you please. So, you create a website for this very purpose. The website runs for a number of years before the land of the free and the home of the brave put you in prison for life plus 40 years. You never committed a violent crime. You exercised your right to freedom.
When Ross was 26 years old, he got very involved with the Ron Paul campaign and the libertarian movement and Austrian economics, and became passionate about freedom and privacy. And he initially created a video game for people to have the experience of a truly free market. Almost got it published, but then when he didn't, he turned to the internet and created Silk Road, which was intended to be essentially a free market where buyers and sellers could exchange things, whatever they wanted, as long as it didn't hurt a third party, because it was based on the philosophy of voluntary interaction and the do no harm principle. So, for example, things that created victims were prohibited. That included, for example, anything to do with pedophilia or child porn. There was none of that on there. Stolen property, violent services, violent items, they were not allowed. So it was meant to be a peaceful market where people could exchange what they wanted. And many people, because it was private and anonymous, many people chose to exchange drugs, mostly, overwhelmingly, the user amounts of cannabis. There were other drugs on there, but they were a small percentage, a minuscule percentage, actually. But they were there. And this was considered by the administration of the site a free choice. You know, it wasn't forcing anyone to do anything. And I'm not defending it. I'm not defending Silk Road even. I'm just saying these are the facts. So he created this site, and it became that one of the main things about the site was that the only means of exchange was Bitcoin, and it was very little known at the time. Mm-hmm. And Ross saw the potential of monetary freedom through Bitcoin, was very excited about it, told me about it, and I even said to him, should I get some? And he said, no, Mom, it's too volatile. That was when it was probably worth about 50 cents. So that was really unfortunate, but I didn't. I didn't really understand it, pardon me?
So it's known that Silk Road really helped make Bitcoin popular initially.
I've had people say that if it weren't for Silk Road and Ross's vision of it, that Bitcoin wouldn't be known at all, that it wouldn't have gone nowhere. One author said he was the most important figure in Bitcoin history after Satoshi. I don't know that much about, I don't have the real technical grasp of Bitcoin like I'm sure you do, but, I know my son, and I know that he never intended harm. He only intended good. And it may have been, obviously it wasn't a good idea. He's serving a double life sentence plus 40 years. And mind you, these are all nonviolent charges. There's no violence in his conviction at all, unlike what you might read in the media.
Prior to
None of that was convicted, charged at trial, and all those other charges that were in another state were dismissed. He has nothing on his record about violence whatsoever. Very well known, anecdotally as well as in evidence, that there were many people running that site and going by the name Dread Pirate Roberts, which Ross is being accused of being the only Dread Pirate Roberts. And actually recently a top-level admin, Curtis Green, who is allegedly targeted by DPR to be killed, he's very supportive of us. He doesn't think that person was Ross. And he said, I was DPR for a while. There were corrupt agents all over the site that had free access to everything, including the ability to act as DPR.
Wow.
He thinks they were doing it. A lot of things are sealed, undisclosed, and encrypted in this case still. And there's 2 federal agents who are stealing money from the site, and who knows what they were doing as far as changing evidence and all kinds of things. They're in prison. So a lot of things have not been investigated, but that's kind of typical from what I can tell of what the government does, is they get their trophy, and that's good enough, and they can put him away for life and say they did it. And meanwhile, the guy who was running and admitted to running Silk Road 2, which was like a copycat site, but only bigger and sold more drugs in a month, he never did any time. He's free. He was in custody 13 days, and now I have no idea where he is, but he is not in jail. And my question is, if Ross is so dangerous and he can never be let out, why is this person who did something bigger free? It's very unfair. I think it's very political. I think it has a lot to do with Bitcoin. I think that was the motivation behind coming after him so hard and the site so hard. And actually, that was proven, or to me, substantiated this past March by Snowden documents that were revealed by The Intercept, saying that the NSA was urgently tracking Bitcoin users in March before Ross was arrested in October
First, in the case of Ross Ulbricht, who was prosecuted for founding the Silk Road website and is now effectively, he's appealing it, but a life sentence, do you assume, or should we assume, that the NSA was involved in corroborating or gathering evidence which they might have denied in the actual trial?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, that was easy enough. Two questions.
I mean, just to elaborate on that, I apologize, because I don't mean to be pat there.
Yeah.
But the NSA in the United States is a member of a larger group called the Five Eyes Network, right? This is the United States, the UK, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. And these 5 countries, they sort of mix everything together in a common pot, and they share and share alike. They're not allowed to ask a partner to violate their laws, but partners can share information that would have been in violation of their laws if they didn't ask for it. Now, not to say that particular strategy applied in this context, but the difference between the National Security Agency's authorities, and particularly the British equivalent of the NSA called the GCHQ, their authorities, is the UK is allowed to use NSA systems, right, that we built that work in the United States and everything else, against or under the mandate of what's called a serious crimes authority that's completely unrelated to national intelligence prerogatives. And this includes drug trafficking. They are literally mandated for this. They use our systems for this. And then the fruits of their investigations, they can share freely with us. So I would say yes, of course. And it was foolish in the court case. I understand why they did it. He didn't want to own the server at the time. He didn't want to say, yes, this is mine. Therefore, the judge wouldn't allow him to make sort of a Fourth Amendment argument here that investigatory restrictions had been violated. But it seems unthinkable to me that there was not an intelligence angle internationally that was involved in that case.
He's a first-time offender, and all his convictions are nonviolent. He was never prosecuted for killing or injuring anyone. No victim was named at trial. Ross is condemned to die in prison for the mistake of creating a website called Silk Road, a mistake he deeply regrets. An idealistic libertarian in his 20s, he wanted to provide a free market experience where consenting people could buy and sell what they chose as long as no third party was harmed. Legal items were sold, but so were drugs, mostly small amounts of marijuana. Even though Ross didn't have contact with any items sold on the site, he was held responsible for all of it and received a walking death sentence. Ross has a life history of compassion and generosity. While in prison, he has been a light in a dark place and has dedicated himself to helping others. He has mentored and set an example by tutoring, teaching classes, helping prisoners earn high school diplomas, and more. 130 of his fellow prisoners signed a letter asking President Trump to free Ross. Over 250 organizations and eminent individuals have also voiced their support. They believe Ross deserves a second chance, and so do over 350,000 people who have signed Ross's Change.org clemency petition. The world doesn't need to be protected from my son. He's a peaceful man who is eager to give back and contribute to society. We hope and pray that the president will commute Ross's cruel and unjust sentence and release him to do the good that he is capable of. Please visit freeross.org and sign the petition. Please ask the president to free Ross.
Personally, how do you feel the fight is going, I guess?
It's up to you.
I know, but we gotta,
There's sort of these two polarizing perspectives, right? Everything is great. The internet has created all this freedom and liberty and everything's going to be fantastic. Or everything is terrible. The internet has created all these tools for cracking down and spying and, controlling what we say. And I think both are true, right? The internet has done both. And both are kind of amazing and astonishing. And which one will win out in the long run is up to us. It doesn't make sense to say, oh, one is doing better than the other. They're both true. And it's up to us which ones we emphasize and which ones we take advantage of, because they're both there and they're both always going to be there.
Aaron Swartz was a coder, a political activist, and an internet freedom fighter, amongst many other things.
His resume included co-authoring RSS 1.0 at the age of 14, co-founding Creative Commons, co-founding Demand Progress, and being a member of the Harvard University Ethics Center Lab.
He helped organize the successful campaign against the Stop Online Piracy Act, or SOPA, which sought to monitor the internet for copyright violations and shut websites down.
The whole premise of our constitutional rights is that they're freedoms that are so important to us that yes, we take risks, sometimes physical risks, to protect them. I mean, we have a whole system of trials and stuff. Would we be safer if we could just throw people in jail randomly? Probably a little bit, but that's not a kind of country I would want to live in.
The 26-year-old took his own life last Friday.
And some people suggest that he committed suicide because the state of Massachusetts was overzealously prosecuting him.
He faced the possibility of $4 million in fines and more than 50 years in prison.
My God, what did he do to deserve that kind of punishment?
All this for illegally downloading academic documents.
Let me give you a sense of perspective. Threatening the president, my God, that's really serious, right? That can get up to 5 years in prison. Knowingly spreading AIDS, maximum of 10 years in prison. Well, come on, selling child pornography, right? That's got to be much worse. Maximum of 20 years in prison. Selling slaves, just that act, maximum of 20 years in prison. Bank robbery, 20 years. Armed bank robbery, maximum of 25 years in prison. Helping terrorists develop a nuclear weapon, well, that's got to be more, right? Wrong, 20 years in prison. 20 years in prison for helping Al-Qaeda develop a nuclear weapon. But what Aaron Swartz did, face up to 50 years in prison. Now, I know it's multiple counts, but this is the trick that they always do. Oh, well, that one time that I think you were hacking in, that's a count. And the other time that was like 3.5 minutes later, that's another count. And that's another count. And we add all these together and we get 50 years. Why? We want to intimidate you. We want to bully you. We want to pressure you. We want to break you. It is grotesque.
Swartz was, quote, driven to the edge by what a decent society would only call bullying.
The Archive Network, which stood to be harmed the most, declined to press charges.
They said, we will not even pursue civil charges. It's not that big a deal. It's not that important.
Nonetheless, the government proceeded.
There was nobody hurt by these actions, right? And to really see the federal government and prosecutors go after it so aggressively to throw the book at someone like that, really makes you question some of the priorities.
It really looks like the prosecutors were acting not out of a sense of justice or of responding to harm, but as if they have a vendetta or they're making an example.
I mean, I can't even imagine how scary and terrible that must be to have your government hell-bent on putting you in a cage for 30 years for downloading some PDFs.
Was very frustrated with school. I thought, the teachers didn't know what they were talking about, and they were very domineering and controlling, and the homework was kind of a sham, and it was just like, all the way to pen students together and force them to do busy work. And, I started reading books about like the history of education and how this educational system was developed, and alternatives to it in ways that people could actually learn things as opposed to just regurgitating facts their teachers told them. And that kind of led me down this path of questioning things. Once I questioned the school I was in, I questioned the society that built the school, I questioned the businesses that the schools were training people for, and I questioned the government that, set up this whole structure. It's not enough to just live in the world as it is, to just kind of take what you're given and, follow the things that adults told you to do and that, your parents told you to do and that society tells you to do. I think you should always be questioning. I take this very scientific attitude that everything you've learned is just provisional, that, it's always open to recantation or refutation or questioning. And I think the same applies to society. Once I realized that there were real serious problems, fundamental problems that I could do something to address, I didn't see a way to forget that. I didn't see a way not to.
Remind us of the charges he was facing and tell us what the father told you about these alleged crimes.
Brooke, Aaron allegedly downloaded millions of academic journals from MIT's network. He believed that academic research shouldn't be hidden behind a paywall. And his father said he believed he was innocent. But he did say to me, even if he wasn't innocent, the punishment of facing 35 years in prison did not match the crime. 11 of the 13 charges Aaron faced were violations of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, a law that many people say is completely outdated. I asked his father about this. Listen to this.
Well, at the moment, that law makes it a felony for you to give your password to HBO to a friend. That has to be changed.
If you believe that there are problems with the criminal justice system, which obviously you've said, do you believe that if the criminal justice system hadn't failed Aaron, do you believe he'd be alive today?
Without question.
How does that make you feel?
Like one who's gone into the abyss.
Brooke, I met Aaron's father about a year ago, and we were sitting in the cafeteria here at CNN in New York, and he just said to me, he said, Lori, I was on my way over and I picked up my phone to call my son, and then it hit me. And you can see that he still has questions, and he's obviously defeated by this, but he's fighting.
He's fighting. He's talking to you about it. You even talked to him about the day his son was arrested. What did he share with you?
It's heartbreaking. He talks about how he and his son went to MIT to go retrieve his bicycle and his helmet from the officer after he was arrested. The officer came out and said, this is now in the hands of the Secret Service. And they were devastated. But he got into more detail, and he said that how they treated him after that, it essentially broke him. Listen to this.
They went to his apartment, went through all of his personal effects. After he surrendered voluntarily, they arrested him, they strip searched him, and they left him in solitary confinement for hours. And after he met his bond, they kept him in solitary confinement for 3 or 4 hours with absolutely no explanation, all with the goal of attempting to break him.
And, he did. We should say Aaron did battle. As he was battling the courts, he was battling with depression. And his father really believes that had it not been for the charges and the extent of his charges, his son would still be alive today, Brooke.
Did Aaron's death affect you?
Yeah, really profoundly. I'd known Aaron for a really long time. He had written the afterword to a novel that came out 2 weeks after he died, and had really helped me write that novel. It was a sequel to Little Brother, book called Homeland. And I'd had this placeholder in the book because I wanted the character to come up with an amazing next generation internet-based electioneering platform that he would help an independent candidate for the California Senate use in a by-election. It was a kind of plot point I wanted it to turn on. And I rang up all the electoral strategists I knew. And I know some like super smart electoral strategists who worked on some of the biggest campaigns, the data-driven big campaigns, because they all come out of the same place that I do, this kind of early .com technology story. They're good people and they're super smart and imaginative. And I said, what's your, if you had a candidate who would go along with your craziest idea, what would your craziest idea be? None of them were crazy enough. They were all inside the Beltway, inside the Overton window, inside the box thinking. And then I, kind of at my wit's end, I wrote to Aaron and I said, what would you do? And he sent me back shovel-ready ideas, like 6 paragraphs that I literally just lightly rewrote and pasted right into the book because it was perfect. And the last line of that email was, I gotta go now, I'm gonna go build this, right? So he was this amazing guy and a real force of nature. I mean, he wasn't an angel, right? I disagreed with him now and again, so had lots of other people, but he was an amazing guy and a hero in many ways. And what he faced was so radically unjust, and he was hounded into it by a prosecutor who he'd made a fool of when the prosecutor worked with the FBI to come after him for his PACER work, and who had decided that he was going to score political points. And it was disgusting, and awful. And it galvanized us, right? It galvanized a whole group of people into making sure that the next Aaron would be protected. And, I'm very wary of cults of personality. And I don't want to write Aaron's hagiography here, but the inspiration that people have taken from Aaron has been amazing. And I would give anything, I'd give all that inspiration to have him back. But many of us, taken it upon ourselves to make sure that his death wasn't in vain. So, the young Russian woman who started sci-hub.cc, which is taking all the publicly funded science that's been put behind paywalls and making it available for free. She spoke at our Forbidden Research Conference. She said, I'm doing Aaron's work. This is what Aaron wanted to do, and I'm doing it too. We don't know if that's what Aaron wanted to do, but he clearly inspired her to do it. It's an amazing thing.
And that's what you're doing at MIT, basically.
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, I'm not doing it just because of Aaron or just for Aaron, but Aaron's never far from our thoughts when we think about this stuff. You know, and I work with Aaron's brother Noah at Electronic Frontier Foundation, and I know his dad, and, you know, like, they're all remarkable people, and they all see this as the best thing we can salvage from it. I mean, the thing I'm wary of when I talk about how Aaron's death has turned into this inspiration is I don't want people to think that this is that when all else is bleak, that the best thing you can do is commit suicide and be an inspiration to others or a warning to others. Aaron's committing suicide was the stupidest thing he ever did. He did it in a moment of extremis, and he did it in a moment of sorrow and a moment of, you know, depression. But like Aaron was really good at solving problems. And that was a dumb way to solve his problem. It didn't solve his problem. Like, dead people don't get to act on the world, right? Only living people solve problems. Dead people are dead. They're inert, right? And so all of the problems that Aaron had it in him to solve in the future will be left unsolved forever because he made a really dumb choice. And anyone who's watching this or listening to this and thinking about this, remember that you cannot solve your problems after you're dead. And that there are suicide prevention hotlines, and there are people who will talk to you about your problems. There are so many of us who I think Aaron felt like he would be burdening us if he talked with us about his problems, but who would have been delighted to take a phone call at any hour to talk to him about his problems. And you know, if you're watching this and you're feeling suicidal, your friends will listen to your problems, and the Samaritans will listen to your problems, and you will not be a burden on them. You will do them the honor of helping you, because someday they'll need some kind of help too, and they'll understand in their own way that having helped you, that it's not a burden on other people to go to them to go to their friends for help either. So it's an important thing to keep in mind here. And the other legacy of Aaron is that I think he improved the self-care, the standard of self-care among his friends. So many of Aaron's friends, for example, now campaign on behalf of Chelsea Manning, who is a whistleblower who was sentenced to 35 years in prison when she was 26 years old and was held in solitary for many years, and who recently attempted suicide and was put in solitary again as punishment for attempting suicide and had to go on a hunger strike. And I think a lot of us feel very scared and nervous for Chelsea, but we also worry about each other. And I've noticed that in the wake of Aaron's death, that a lot of us will call each other up or email each other and just check in and make sure everything's okay. That it's hard to notice the absence of something, right? It's hard to notice that your friend hasn't been around lately talking in all the channels where they normally talk. It's easy to just miss that fact in your Twitter stream or your Facebook wall. But you can make this conscious effort to keep in mind the friends of yours who are going through rough times, to check in to see whether they are absent, to call them up and make that explicit effort and make sure they know, and go through the awkwardness and the kind of Californian touchy-feeliness of saying, I'm here if you need to talk to me. Because it's worth it. It's the thing that keeps us all sane, and it's the thing that will save us all.
This is a tribute to Aaron Swartz. I'm just showing my respect, so let's have a short moment to reflect. Was it cybercrime or fighting for rights? I admit it's a fine line, so might I present this? A track record you might find distinguished, the highlights of which you're quite trying to list. This bright mind extinguished, died trying to bring this brave new world to life. Cybergenesis, computer literate, like-minded linguist. The lines in the script are my kind of English, and hindsight provides quite the image of an activist dying like he lived in the firing line of online rights. Traditionalist, politicist, quick to stick his digits on the hit list. A lifetime in prison could drive minds to sickness, so why am I surprised he did this? Fighting insurmountable odds handed down from the gods, because David is a risk when Goliath runs a business. We're all Aaron Swartz in a manner of speaking. We'll carry on his work that still needs completing. We're all Swartz in a manner of speaking. We'll finish every mission that still needs completing.
London police have arrested WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange.
Now, the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, has left the world divided. For many, he is a man fighting for the truth. But for many critics, Assange is a criminal who endangered lives.
In the United Kingdom, that country's Supreme Court has just denied WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's extradition appeal.
For more than 2.5 years, the wire service Reuters has been trying to find out what happened to their 2 staff members on this street in the suburb of New Baghdad. WikiLeaks says this is what happened.
Yep, he's got a weapon too. Hotel 26, Crazy Horse 18, have 5 to 6 individuals with AK-47s. We got RPG. All right, we got a guy with
The voice on the tape, presumably a member of the military, says there has been shooting in the area and receives permission to open fire.
When people are labelled as insurgents, are they really insurgents? It seems to be the case that from the scenes in this video, that any person that is not a man and sometimes not a woman is by default labelled as an insurgent.
Light them all up. 202 traffic, 260s. Come on, fire. Hey, Roger. Keep shooting. God damn it, Kyle. All right. I hit him by head. Oh, yeah, look at those dead bastards. Nice. 2-6, crazy.
From a distance, you hear the voices on the tape watch as the wounded try to crawl to help. But when help arrives...
Come on, let us shoot. You're engaged. 1-8, engaged. Clear. Come on. Clear. Oh, yeah, look at that, right through the windshield.
In this video, I think you see the corruption of pilots and the military by war itself, in particular by the modern nature of aerial warfare. So you see these young pilots acting like they're playing video games, only the high scores they are getting are with real human lives.
We call frequency. I just drove over a body. Yeah. Hyper 5, 204, free change zone 4.
Even from high above, the harsh reality becomes evident as the troops that arrive find 2 children wounded. You see them carry their small bodies and call for help.
Hey, I need to get the brass to drop ramps. I got a wounded girl. We need to take the rest of mine.
The response on the tape...
Oh, it's their fault for bringing their kids to a battle. That's right.
Patty Colhane, Al Jazeera, Washington.
It's been reported that WikiLeaks, your baby, has, in the last few years, has released more classified documents than the rest of the world's media combined. Can that possibly be true?
Yeah, can it possibly be true? It's a worry, isn't it? That the rest of the world's media is doing such a bad job that a little group of activists is able to release more of that type of information than the rest of the world press combined.
A new report by Yahoo News has come out with some serious claims. It goes into details about the CIA's war on WikiLeaks and its founder, even stating that the U.S. had plans to abduct or even assassinate Julian Assange.
So let's talk a little bit about some of these ideas that the CIA was cooking up. What lengths was the organization willing to go through to get their hands on Julian Assange and shut down WikiLeaks?
Well, pretty far. As I mentioned, the kidnapping, abduction plans were taken pretty seriously and pushed by Pompeo. It was part of a sort of multi-pronged attack that the CIA director and top officials wanted to launch on WikiLeaks that would include getting monitoring and tracking the communications and travels of WikiLeaks associates, in sowing discord among the ranks of WikiLeaks, stealing computers, all sorts of really aggressive actions. The CIA was getting audio and video feeds from inside the Ecuadorian embassy of Assange, essentially spying on him, while, as his lawyers assert, he was talking to them, his lawyers and doctors, having all sorts of communications that would be considered privileged. So that could well be grounds for government misconduct here that should lead to at least either the British courts rejecting the extradition request, or if Assange is returned to face a trial in the United States, motions for government misconduct by the United States.
Yahoo News spoke with 30 former U.S. intelligence and national security officials for this story. And the former Secretary of State and former CIA Director Mike Pompeo is calling for all of those sources to face criminal charges.
Pompeo essentially just confirmed the story because you can only be prosecuted for disclosing real and legitimate classified information. So if Pompeo wants them prosecuted, it means he's just implicitly saying, yeah, this exposed CIA secrets.
And support for Julian Assange online. I'm just going to go to this tweet here in response to our show today. I have been following it. That is the Julian Assange WikiLeaks case. I'm shocked at the blatant disregard for rule of law and proper process in this case. It's hard to understand why multiple UN member states aren't speaking out against the blatant disregard for democratic processes and human rights. Rebecca.
Indeed, there is not enough action by states themselves to raise this with their counterparts in the US government and in the UK government. These are the countries at the epicenter of this. But we have to look at why. What is really at stake here is a broader question. It's should states be able to hold information as classified? The leak in question was the biggest in history. Hundreds of thousands of diplomatic cables and military documents were leaked. We believe at Reporters Without Borders that this was in the public interest. We believe that Julian Assange was targeted for this contribution to journalism because these leaked documents informed scores of public interest reporting around the world. We all know more about war crimes, about human rights abuses, other illegal acts that were committed. None of these acts have ever been persecuted. It's only the publisher being pursued here. This is a very dangerous precedent again, and the U.S. Espionage Act lacks a public interest defense. So if he is extradited to the U.S. and prosecuted there, Julian Assange cannot adequately defend himself because, again, this was because he acted in the public interest. But this, too, could be applied to any publisher, any source, any journalist around the world. This is not only about Julian Assange.
It's April 2010, and this video depicting what looks like a war crime goes around the world.
Come on. Oh, yeah, look at that, right through the windshield.
11 people killed by a US helicopter in Iraq, including 2 journalists. Secret material obtained by WikiLeaks, the organisation run by this man, Julian Assange.
Now the man at the centre of it all says he's fighting for his life, extraordinarily, in this British court. He says he's the victim of a conspiracy to punish him for exposing US crimes.
Julian Assange set up WikiLeaks in 2006. He wanted to expose secrets he and others believed should be in the public domain.
I was a famous teenage computer hacker in Australia, and I've been reading generals' emails since I was 17.
It was his communications and relationship with a soldier in Iraq that turned him and WikiLeaks into a household name. That soldier downloaded an absolute trove of US secrets and sent them to Julian Assange. Most of the leaks were highly classified, and some arguably endangered lives.
So what's that got to do with British justice?
In 2010, Julian Assange was working in the UK, and Sweden requested his extradition. Prosecutors there wanted to question him over allegations of rape and sexual assault. He said they were politically motivated lies, part of a plan to ultimately get him into a US courtroom.
Julian Assange struck a deal with Ecuador. It agreed to give him asylum, and he hid here in its embassy, beyond the reaches of the law.
People. Come say hello. Hello. I'm Stella Morris. I am Julian Assange's partner.
This is the extraordinary YouTube post released by WikiLeaks. Julian Assange, it reveals, has 2 young children, fathered while he was holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy in London.
This is the younger one, Max, with the cat. That's the big one, kind of a same picture. They're quite similar looking when you look at them like that.
Stella Morris reveals she was employed as a member of the Australians' international legal team and, fluent in Swedish, would visit him inside the embassy almost daily. Swedish allegations of sexual assault against Julian Assange have since been dropped. Julian Assange is fighting extradition to the US. In a London court, his legal team had tried to have his partner's name suppressed, but it looked likely she'd be named anyway this week.
I have to do this. because I've taken so many steps for so many years, and I feel like Julian's life might be coming to an end.
It's been a year since Julian Assange was dragged down these stairs at the Ecuadorian embassy. Now his legal team is trying to have him freed from the Belmarsh prison, saying he's at high risk of contracting coronavirus there. They say his health is already compromised.
Somehow everyone has failed Julian. They've all failed Julian.
The judge in the case has repeatedly denied bail.
As Julian Assange hunkered down, the US was prepared to wait. Its prosecutors were drawing up plans to charge him with conspiracy to hack government computers and violation of the country's espionage laws.
WikiLeaks walks like a hostile intelligence service and talks like a hostile intelligence service.
All it needed was for the embassy's house guest to outstay his welcome.
Hoy anuncio que la conducta irrespetuosa y agresiva del señor Julian Assange han llevado la situación a un punto en que el asilo del señor Assange es insostenible e inviable.
He was jailed in London for going on the run from the Swedish allegations, and even though that case was later dropped, he remained in a cell because the US requested he be sent there for trial.
Julian Assange's immediate fate was now in the hands of District Judge Vanessa Barreza. She had to decide whether he should be sent to the US under the law of extradition, and she ruled that his leaks looked like a crime under both English and US law. But she then blocked the request, saying that there was evidence that Julian Assange was so mentally unwell he could try to kill himself in a US jail and nobody would be able to stop him.
Julian Assange wants his case to be about free speech and journalism, but of course journalists can also commit crimes, and both the US and the UK have laws that protect national security secrets. So the primary legal question for the British judges is whether his leaks crossed the line into hacking and disclosed secrets, and also endangered lives.
If the US convinces judges at London's High Court that Julian Assange isn't too ill to face trial in America, he's one step closer to being put on the plane to face trial.
Once you get on, just open up.
Okay, Roger. I see your element. You got about 4 Humvees out along this.
You're clear. All right, firing.
Line here, with the state line. Let me know when you have it.
Or shoot. Light them all up.
02 traffic, 260.
Come on, fire.
Hey, Roger.
Keep shooting. Keep shooting.
Bushmaster 2-6. We need to move time now.
All right, we just engaged all 8 individuals.
Yeah, we got 2 birds. We're still firing.
Roger. Got him.
6 is a 2-6. We'll move, but we got this.
Oh, sorry. Well, I was on.
Bypass.
God damn it, Kyle. All right. I hit him by heck. All right, you're clear. All right, I'm just trying to find targets again.
Bushmaster 6 is a Bushmaster 2-6.
A bunch of bodies laying there. All right, we got about 8 individuals.
Yeah, we got one guy crawling around down there, but yeah, we definitely got some. We're shooting some more.
Roger. Hey, you shoot, I'll talk. Hotel 26, Crazy Horse 18. The Hotel 26, Crazy Horse 18. Oh yeah, look at those dead bastards. 4 this time.
002, 3 change.
Nice. Good shoot. Thank you. There's one guy moving down there, but he's wounded.
The south.
Alright, we'll let him know so they can hurry up, get over here. This is 1-8. We also have one individual, appears to be wounded, trying to crawl away.
Roger, we're going to move down there.
Roger, we'll cease fire. Yeah, we won't shoot anymore. He's getting up. If he has a weapon though in his hand? No, I haven't seen one yet. You guys got that guy crawling right now on the curb? Yeah, I got him. I put 2 rounds in here, and you guys are shooting over there too, so we'll see. Yeah, roger that.
Bushmaster 36 Element is Hotel 27, over.
Hotel 27, Bushmaster 7, go ahead.
Roger, I'm just trying to make sure that you guys have my turb, over.
Roger, we got the turb. Come on, buddy. I gotta just pick up a weapon.
Crazy Horse is Bushmaster 5. Bushmaster 4, break.
Crazy Horse 1-8, request permission to engage. Picking up the wounded. Yeah, we're trying to get permission to engage. Come on, let us shoot. The Bushmaster, Crazy Horse 1-8. We're taking him. Bushmaster, Crazy Horse 1-8.
This is Bushmaster 7, go ahead.
Roger, we have a black SUV or bongo truck picking up the bodies. Request permission to engage.
Bushmaster 7, roger. This is Bushmaster 7, roger, engage.
1-8, engage. Clear. Come on. Clear. Clear. Coming around, clear. Roger. Go ahead to, clear. I hear him trying, I lost him in the I got him. I'm firing.
Hey, what is this Bushmaster 4? You got any BDA on that truck, over?
Killer. This is Crazy Horse Sample. Should have a van in the middle of the road with about 12 to 15 bodies. Oh yeah, look at that, right through the windshield. Alright, there was approximately 4 to 5 individuals in that truck, so I'm counting about 12 to 15. Yes, Viper, 5 running zone 208 for zone 4, we go frequency. Yeah, I just drove over a body. Yeah.
Viper 5, 2 report free change zone 4.
Cresta 20, Commando 89ers active, Port Bravo 311.
20.
Magnet radio, aggressive 34 is off zone 208 for zone 1. Call for change.
Cresta 43, zone, correction, Cresta 34, zone 30 is closed, report free change zone 1.
Cresta 34, welcome.
Roger.
Roger, that's a negative on evac and the 2 civilian kids to Rusty. They're going to have the IPs link up with us over here, break. IPs will take them up to a local hospital, over. That's a good copy, over.
Oh, it's their fault for bringing their kids to a battle. That's right. Roger. Break. Crazy Horse 1-8. Request permission to engage. Picking up the wounded. Yeah, we're trying to get permission to engage. Come on, let us shoot. The Bushmaster, Crazy Horse 1-8. Crazy Horse 18.
Last calling station, Hotel 26. Hotel 26, you want your hotel zone?
And a black vehicle under target, right to the north of the mall.
Yeah, I would like that, over.
Hotel Crazy Horse 18.
Now, you see, when your identity is defined by society, you cannot resist it. You don't have the knowledge, you don't have the wisdom, you don't have the resources to understand that something's being put over on you. You cannot but help believe the definition of you as a free agent. But you believe yourself to be a free agent as a result of not being free. That is to say, of being hopelessly unable to resist society's identification of you.
There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table to figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they used to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all. Yeah. You know? And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.